Welcome to Matthew Sutherland. We're going to be talking today about the mission, the vision, the statement with the founder, owner, CEO,
hmm
and guru, Akina Allen, who's going to talk to us a little bit about today about, we have a few questions lined up about what inspired the company, her personal journey, and things of that nature. So, Akina, I'm going to start by asking just a few questions, and then we'll dive into the second half of the interview.
hmm
Um, so first, the first thing I want to ask is essentially, what inspired you to build this company? Um, and why is supporting children with dyslexia important to you?
So, what inspired me to build this company is that you always have like advocacies. But what I'm finding talking to parents and really what the goal is to make sure that your student doesn't just know that they're different, but that they're gifted. And that as they are diagnosed with dyslexia and other neurodivergent disabilities, that they walk into the world with their head up. And to me, that's important. I was a student, I was a parent, and I realized I didn't know what I could actually do because it was never stated. And as a parent, you want to know that your child can walk into the world being independent. So for me to build something like this is answering a question to two people. One, you have the school, the matriculation. You want to know, okay, I sit in the IEP meeting. I know what the student has a problem with because this is why we're here. But at the same time, let's start looking at how the student is going to go into the job force. What are we going to do when the child gets into college? And how are we going to navigate that pool? That's the first thing. The second thing is being dyslexic person in the workforce. I have experienced so many different things, so many trials and tribulations. And it's because the environment isn't set up. But it took me so long to learn what I do best and what it is that I can contribute to the team without feeling like I'm an idiot. Like, how did I get here? Do I deserve to be here? It's imposter syndrome. So I built this company as a coaching to sit down and talk to people and also sit down and talk to decision makers in the hiring process and the structure. Like I spoke with USAID, and they wanted to know, how do we do this? How do we hire people in the interview process and kind of mine for these gifts as they were onboarding disabled individuals? And it's about tapping into what that person was created to do, but also tapping into their gifts. So that's what was my motivation for this.
What change do you want to see most in the lives of children, that have dyslexia and other neurodivergencies?
What I want to see them is to be empowered. I want to see them
Mm,
empowered as to what it is they bring to the table and to lean into their gift and don't spend so much time struggling with the things that are so difficult for them to do, but have joy in the stuff that they can do versus be troubled about all the stuff that they can't do because their peers, or their cousins, or, comparing themselves. Get out of the comparison mode and embrace yourself.
mm. Um, when we talk about embracing, embracing their gifts and embracing their talents, what is if you had to pick just one thing, I know there are multiple, but if you had to pick just one thing, what would be probably the most misunderstood gift about dyslexia that parents may see as a hindrance to their children?
Interconnecting reasoning. So interconnecting reasoning is the ability to look at two totally different things and see the commonality. And when children pick up different things or say, "Hey, what about this?" To a parent, it's like, you're not focused. That's not the same. Well, that child or that student sees some similarity and sees how those two things together can solve a problem and create a solution. And that is something one of the most misunderstood aspects. But the other issue is that parents don't even know the gift that a child is carrying because it's not stated. And as a parent, when your child is diagnosed with a learning disability, a gifting is not something you're paying attention to. Let's be honest. Because you're emotionally thinking, my child will be a failure in life. And what did I do wrong?
Um, I want to touch on that for just a minute.
Hmm.
One of the things that, and I could be wrong, and so correct me if I am.
Hmm.
One of the things that I think you see commonplace with parents who have children that have dyslexia really is this belief that when they get to corporate, as you mentioned before, that they will be failures, not because they don't love their child, not because of a lack of love and affection, but because in the corporate environment, we're required to do a multitude of things. That cognitive ability to manage one task and then move to the other and comprehend and perceive and understand is expected to be done at a very quick pace. Um, and so if we take an example, I like to use examples because they help me frame things a lot. If you take the example of a child that is struggling with, again, reading and writing, the core fundamental things they need to do when it comes to corporate America, um, many institutions will not outright claim that that child is bad, but they will put parameters in place to help that child, and the school and the system in itself becomes this crutch. We talked a bit about how parents, feel that weight of failure. Can you talk a bit about what it would be like for teachers and the school system to also do they feel that failure as well? Do teachers feel that I'm not helping these students in the way that they need to be helped because they're clearly not performing? The parents see it at home, but the teachers see it every single day in the environment that they're in, seeing the child not performing and struggling with that.
In some cases, they could, because a lot of teachers are here for the heart and they want every child to succeed. And I feel like if a teacher has a student that they just can't get through, it bothers them because they're like, what am I doing wrong? Why can't I tap into this student's, how come all the other students are doing this and I want all the students to learn? I'm here for the students to learn. And they're human. They take a great interest in these students. They understand the lives that they're impressioning on. So they want to make sure they're hitting the mark. And it's not just status, it's I went to school to teach because I wanted children to learn. And if that student or group of students isn't learning, it's like, what am I doing wrong?
How much support does the teacher, what would you say the dynamics are between the teacher and the parent when it comes to that specific child? And I say this because the realities of the world often interfere with what we want from a practical and even moral perspective. We want, in an ideal setting, for all of the students to be able to read, to write, and to do all of
Mm-hmm.
these things. We want the children that may need more help and support to have that help and support. We live in the real world, and those things are not always the case. And so, how much support does the parent need from the teacher, and how much support does the teacher need from the parent, so that ultimately the child is the one that is receiving the benefits from and really getting the education that they need?
It's multi-layered. And I feel like the parent needs to come to the table in a level of peace. And it needs to be a non combative situation. It shouldn't be any blaming or naming or pointing fingers. And they need each other. It's a 50-50 situation. The parent needs to understand what is being taught in the classroom and do their best. The teacher needs to also say, this is what it is, and maybe reach out to the parent and say, hey, we're doing this assignment, and Justin is having some difficulty in class. Can you work on these skills with him? And maybe modifying the assignment so that the assignment highlights the skills that Justin does very well, versus saying they have to do it the way everybody else is doing, which is causing frustration. But you also, too, that other part is empowering that student and showing their students, oh no, you understand this, and tapping into what they understand and putting those things together versus just saying, have it relatable. Because at the time, if you think about it, the brain dumps out whatever it doesn't feel is relatable. Like, how am I going to use this? I'm not using this right now. Dump, and it's gone.
Right.
What we have to look at is that student needs to see the relevancy, and you need to meet that student where they are. That's the number one thing. Meeting that student where they are and what they understand, and introducing that to them at that point. and then talking to the parent and saying, I recognize he does this very well in class. Or the parent can say at home, hey, when it comes to this stuff right here, Justin is good. Justin understands it. And speaking to the teacher about what the interests are at home that the student really gets into. So the teacher would have an idea of how to navigate teaching that student that skill or that topic.
When you, and without disclosing any names or anything
Mm-hmm.
like that, there are certain situations where, we've seen situations where the child, even realistically, unfortunately, every child does not have the same level of support. And so you've seen instances where the child does not have the support at home because of different family situations. Similarly, the school may not be supplied with the tools to assist that child in every way. They may get the minimum that they need because of state and federal regulations, but not necessarily what that specific child needs. And I want to talk to you about those scenarios where the child emotionally has a barrier that needs to be overcome, where their doubt in their own capabilities is the barrier, not necessarily the teaching method, not necessarily the strategy of we're going to practice this and we're going to show the child this, and parents and teachers combining to support. But we've seen instances where the child actually has a mental barrier of just confidence, where he or she feels that it's harder for them to overcome their specific circumstances because of who they are inherently in their life, the life that they have that they've been given. How would you, and maybe just a high level overview, how would you work with, because we talk about working with parents and teachers, how would you work with the child to help them overcome that confidence barrier and help them to start to believe in themselves? What are some one or two strategies that teachers and parents and yourself can implement to really bridge that gap between the child's confidence versus what their actual ability is when it
So
comes
one
to dyslexia? That is.
what I find with me is visualization. Where do you see yourself? And maybe doing some type of project where they can put together their ideal life, like a vision board. We talk about those. And also find people in the field. So the other thing is visualizing themselves as successful. What does success look like to you? What would do that? The other angle is find out what ideal job they find themselves, that they understand that information and they can really expand and they know it very deeply. And
How young does that start? Does that start at 5, 6,
it start
12?
it could start at any time period. Children at 5, they change their mind quite frequently about what they want to do. But when you start
Right.
looking, you start looking at third and fourth grade, second grade, children start to get an idea of careers and what they see themselves doing. And having that visualization, seeing them put their face where their hero could be, or the person that's really high in their field, and start looking at those things and then start prodding and finding out like what they know. And then not only that, how are they able to retain that information about that subject matter, but also how are they able to tell you about it? How are they able to teach you about it? And that right there, you show them you understand this. Not everybody knows how to do that. And you find a way to use what they like to help them with those basic skills that they're having an issue with. And you make it
Hmm.
relatable to what it is that their brain is absorbing. And you show them where
Hmm.
that's related to this. You need this right here. These are the things that help create those aspects right there. You're actually doing that skill when you're able to do this right here. Showing the relatability of what they already like to do or what they're already in tune with to what you want them to master.
It's funny you say that because I think that strategy comes to play even with those who aren't neurodivergent or have dyslexia. Just to give a brief story, when I was a
Mm-hmm.
child, I remember being in a computer class where they were teaching us how to type, and the teacher would go around and ask us, what is it that you want to do with the skill set? And so it was an odd question at the age of I think I was 10 years old, but one that resonated with me. But the result with that story was actually the opposite of what you said. I told the teacher I wanted to be an engineer, and she told me, I just don't think that you're smart enough to do that. And so, I'm 9, 10 years old. I didn't think much of it. So I went home and told my parents I can't be an engineer now because my teacher said I can't be an engineer. And mind you, I'm not neurodivergent. I don't have the same challenges that someone with dyslexia has. So you can only imagine, having that at a younger age, with someone that is, again, the same age, 9, 10 years old, and they're struggling to read and to type and to, well, not typing, but you get the idea. They're struggling with their own battles. And then you have a teacher or an adult figure, because we look at adults in a high
Mhm.
manner when we're children, telling that child that they can't be something, or that they can't do something, or that you may not be smart enough, or this just may not be your path. And so if you take my situation as an example, where a child says something that for their circumstance and environment may be outlandish. You may have a child that doesn't have the support at home that says, I'm going to go and I'm going to be a doctor. And in their
Mhm.
circle environment, that may not be a realistic thing. Their hands may shake, they may not have the ability to, read as much, but they enjoy the idea of being a doctor. How would you approach that student to make sure that their dreams are recognized? And how would you make sure that the teachers and parents are on board with making sure that that child achieves at least some level of that vision?
I think you have to look at where and be very maybe narrow down and say, you like medicine, you want to become a doctor, but you're really good at this right here. Let's explore that, you know, because it fits to your gifting and your skill set. And if you're gifted at it, you're going to be probably a genius at it at this point. But we have to get out of telling students what they can't do. And I understand you have reality. Reality is going to be there. But let's not start with what they can't do. Let's start with what they can do. It's like a puzzle. You put together the puzzle and you do the frame first, jigsaw puzzle, and then you fill it in. So let's start working on that frame and let's find ways to enhance what they have so that they can create that picture. And it will evolve, it will change. It's discovery. But let that student start the discovery process. Don't just shut them down. Let's not do that. Um, So I would say that would be the first thing. Believe in something. And I think a lot of times adults, the reason why we shut off their dreams because someone shut off ours. And we don't know how to go
Mhm.
back and say, hey, um, let's help you get this. Um,
That's fair.
and I feel like, you have to know what it is that you're doing. If we do it so effortlessly, oh, you can't do it because no one ever told us that we could.
Yep.
And we have to stop that. We have to change the mentality. If we wanted students to succeed, we have to start saying, this is what you're good at. Let's play discovery if you don't know.
I like that. You know, eh, I'm going to shift just a tad to talk about the strategy and the approach. When you look at businesses and you look at sales teams, as an example, one of the first things that they have sales members do, especially if you've never done sales before, you're new to sales, is they try to bring you in after the interview. They try to bring you in to get you acclimated to the environment. There are multiple different sales environments, and stick with me. I'm going somewhere with this.
Mm-hmm.
Some environments, the training for the sales representatives, who and sales are most of the time the most important people in the organization, or at least some of the most important people. But you have different cultures. Some cultures are, we just need you to manage the script and do exactly what we tell you to do and just get clients, and if you don't, we'll kick you out. And some have a culture in which we're going to train you on how to be a salesperson. We know you've never done this before, so we're going to train you on how to do this. With that training, you have two different paths. You have the one organizational corporation that says, we're just going to hope that you know what you're doing, and if you don't, we'll fire you. And you have another that says, we're going to train you. For the organization that says that we're going to focus on training, which similar to what that sales process looks like, we're doing with Matthew Sutherland in terms of training and creating applicable strategies for parents and teachers. Within that training, is a reframing of their worldview, which is sort of what you just talked about. We're reframing the child's worldview and saying, you have an idea that you can go in this direction, and we're going to push you towards that because that's helping you break out of this circle, this barrier that you see yourself in. And with parents and teachers, we're also breaking their worldview. We just talked about children and how their perspective can be molded and changed because they're so young, and we can emphasize that belief in them. When we talk about the practical steps that teachers, well, let's focus on parents. How do we take the same approach with parents who are living in a world where they may not have the ability to even see their child going beyond their capabilities? How would you, what is some strategies you use to tackle that? Because again, we talked about the children and how we can sort of reinforce their beliefs, but the parents are the ones who are living in the mire every single day. They're going to work, they're waking up, they're taking their children to school, they're working with them after school and helping them overcome those challenges with reading and understanding and comprehension. Um, but they may not believe in that child in the same manner that even the child does in terms of going upward and above. What are at least one or two strategies you would help parents to sort of reframe what it means to be a neurodivergent child in this world?
I would say, hmm, I would say think about some of the dreams and goals that maybe were shut down in them as children, and what caused them to stop dreaming as children. At what point did they not believe that they could achieve their ideal goals? It's number one. Let's go back to them. Like what is it about that? And two, do they see themselves in that child at that point? And I understand hustle and bustle gets into it. We all have to pay bills. But at one point, did they stop? And these parents could make well into $200,000 a year and still not be happy with who they are. So you have to check and see, are you working? Are you in survival mode? Are you thriving? And if you are in survival mode, do you want your child to be in survival mode? Because clearly it looks like you are unhappy with your life. And on the outside, it may look very shiny. But at this point, you're showing me that you don't like your life because you're shutting down your child's dream. So let's look at you at this point.
And what if we take it a step further? And you've seen this as well. And again, we're not going to disclose
Mm-hmm.
any names or anything like that. But the opposite effect could be true as well. I think the scenario you described is a lot of parents who may be low income households who may not have the resources available to them. But you mentioned something interesting. On the opposite side of that spectrum is a wealthier household, a household making
Mm-hmm.
200, 300, 400,000, even 500 up to $1 million per year
Mm-hmm.
on an annual basis. And it looks different. It doesn't look like I'm killing your dreams as much as it looks like you will stay here forever and we will be that net of protection. How would you help to reframe those types of parents' lives, the high income earners? And I don't want, obviously we're not disparaging against low income
Mm-hmm.
households, but for the higher income households whose plan for their child from the age of 18 to 46 is until I die, they will be with me.
They have to understand that yes, you have made a beautiful life for yourself and that worked for you. However, that child is its own person, its own human being, and that child deserves to pursue their goals. And it may not line up with what you idealistically think because of all of what you provided. And that's not saying you haven't provided a wonderful life. But in order for your child not to go through life miserable and to be the best version of themselves and to show up in the world confident and secure, to take dominion over who they are, they must be able to fly. They must be able to fly. They have to evolve into who they are. and to be just as successful, if not more successful, at what it is they do best.
Playing devil on that point, playing devil's advocate for just a moment. The parent may say, we have built up a life for ourselves. We've worked tremendously hard to get to where we're at. No one gets to 500 to $1 million annually without sacrifice. Um, we have investments in place. We have stocks, we have plans and investments in place to make sure that our child will be taken care of. What would we need Matthew Sutherland for, knowing that we have all of these tools in place so that if anything happens, even God forbid, if a tragedy happens to us, we have wills and other things in place to make sure that the child financially will be taken care of? Why would we need someone like Matthew Sutherland to come in and teach our child these different strategies on how to be successful in their lives when the reality is, in a very real and fiscal sense, we provided the stability that they need for the rest of their lives, or at least a very good majority of it, so long as nothing is touched as far as stocks and investments go.
What you have to understand is that nothing is permanent. And if something happened, you want your child to tap into all, you want to build a toolbox. If all else fails, can they rebuild and feed themselves? And it's good, like I think Warren Buffett said, your child is sitting in the shade because you planted a tree.
Mm-hmm.
And that's good. But what happens if the market crashes or God forbid anything happens and they have to start over from scratch? Bear Stearns, no one ever thought they would fall. They're no longer here. And what you don't want to do is think, oh, we got this covered. And your child has to go out into this world and build something. You want to know for sure that they have tools in their toolbox that they can think, they can understand, and they can pivot when needed. That is what you want to close your eyes. And you also want to be able to preserve the wealth. You want to know that they have the skill set and the tools to preserve the wealth that you have started. And if you want the company to expand or change or evolve based on consumer needs, you need to know that that child has a toolbox that they can think on themselves, and then they're not worried about their deficiency, that they're able to preserve what you have and continue a legacy of what it is you build.
With that being said, this will be my last question before we move on to the next part of it. What is the main goal or outcome that parents can expect to occur after working with you and obviously Matthew Sutherland?
You can expect that your student will tap into their skill. They'll know who they are. They'll feel confident about it, but they'll be able to meet challenges. And these challenges are going to come from many different directions. And they're going to be confident enough to know to say, I don't have all the answers. I know this part, but I know I have the ability to learn these areas here, or I can ask these questions for this information because it's not landing. But I won't give up because I'm confident in who I am, and I know my abilities. I know my strengths, just like I know my weaknesses. But I'm pretty confident about my strength or finding out my strength. You want a child or student to walk into life knowing who they are, but knowing they're not just a label of dyslexia or neurodivergent, but they come with the confidence and knowledge of self and self-reliancy, but also having the ability to ask for help in a clear manner that doesn't demean who they are.
That's good. I like it. That's really, really good. Okay, we're gonna continue on, and we're gonna transition to the second part of this.
Dyslexic person may show certain symptoms, such as difficulty in remembering the right names for things, problems with directions like telling right from left or up from down, They may need more thinking time to remember the right word, and for some, it could be challenging to hold a pen or write by hand, and much more.
Okay, sorry that I'm not going to show the whole video because I don't want to, TikTok we can do that, YouTube I don't know. Regardless, I don't know what that was. I don't know. I want to ask you really two questions. Um, One, how true is that statement and that they have people with dyslexia have difficulty in remembering things, holding pens, and doing basic functions. And then two, um, I want to talk about. Well, I'm going to ask the first question first. How true is some of the statements made in that video? Is it really the reality that difficulty remembering things, holding pens? I mean, the video is making it sound like, respectfully to the video, it makes it sound like people with dyslexia aren't able to function as adults. And that doesn't seem true to me. What are your thoughts?
It's not so much true, and I can say I can relate to actually a couple of those. Not
Okay.
so I used to I like boxing, right? And sometimes my my instructor would be like, go to the left. I'm like, huh? And I have to think, oh yeah, that's not my left, that's my right. And it's just not all the time, but your mind feels like it's misfiring. That right there is true, but there's also 9 different types of dyslexia that people don't know about. I have three. I have three
Okay.
different types of dyslexia. And the map situation and directions, I play with landmarks when it comes to things. No one knows that. Or I'll figure out the easiest way to know my way around a building, as we've
There
seen
are
before.
9 different types of dyslexia.
Yes, 9 different types of dyslexia. And most people don't know that. They just know the ones of reading backwards and things like that. And you
Okay.
put the obvious. Now, when it comes to holding a pen, my handwriting is atrocious. It really is.
Mine
Don't feel
too. If it makes you feel
don't like
any
it.
better.
But I think that's an occupational issue when your fine motor skills. It is some connection to dyslexia, but that's not a total situation. It speaks to the handwriting legibility of it. I think most people are only familiar with certain types of dyslexia, but they have not done enough understanding of it or asking more questions.
So the second part of this question is, this video appears to be made to some degree with some level of artificial intelligence. Um, my question is more about misinformation. As this becomes more and more of a thing, artificial intelligence, that is, people are going to start Googling and researching more and getting basic information about dyslexia. And so I'm not going to share my screen, but if you go online and Google it now, you'll see that dyslexia is portrayed as this one big block, essentially. Versus what you're saying is there are 9 different parts to this thing that most people don't understand. Where do you think are, and this is more so for parents and teachers, where does, how much should parents and teachers rely on artificial intelligence when it comes to learning about dyslexia and getting tools for the children? Obviously, the heart's in the right place. They want to do the right thing for the kid, but the artificial intelligence, even when it comes to general information, just isn't always there. And so, how much should they lean on and trust artificial intelligence as a means of helping them?
I think what you have to do is kind of take it with a grain of salt, okay? And I would say find reputable scientific educational sources for that. You have lots of groups that are driven with dyslexia. It depends on what it is that you're looking for. I would say go to NIH, people who have conducted solid, sustainable research on that. And also look at neurology, because that is the brain, and you want to understand why the brain is doing what it's doing. So I would say, yeah, AI is really cool. Don't get me wrong. Lots of aspects of it. But when you want to get down to it, I would say deal with neurologists or someone who can do a scan to tell you, who understands the brain, and that's what they do, versus just, hey, I'm going to go to AI. And it's a little more of a stretch to do because it's not as easy. However, I would certainly find a neurologist that deals with neurodivergency so you can get clear factual understanding.
That's good because and we'll probably talk about this in a later episode. Um, you know, AI is just so easy to find in terms of its usability. And so, I'm we'll talk about it in the later episode, but there are certainly cases where people are using this to self-diagnose themselves when it comes to regular, I'm getting a cold, or I think I have this type of, uh, you know, syndrome or whatever it may be. And so I can
Hmm.
definitely see we'll talk about it in the later episode, but there are definitely
Hmm.
instances where parents may even be diagnosing their children as, oh, well, my child has ADHD or dyslexia. And the reality is they might not. They just may be a kid and
Hmm.
they may not just want to sit down in class and pay attention as all kids do.
Yeah.
Next video, we're gonna explore the life of a dyslexic teen, and I want you to see just take a look at it.
Very energized to be out of school.
Sorry, I'm gonna start it.
Hey, how was your day? Kinda.
This is my afternoon in the life as a dyslexic teen. First, I go home, very energized to be out of school. I say hi to my siblings. My little sister likes to act like she's a special delivery. And then, before I start what's next, I have to find the perfect snack. Searching, 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 and I found it. I head over to the office and work on my lecture size. My mom and I have been working on therapy lessons once a week. Then, on my own, I practice these games that help me with my spelling, reading, and writing. It takes me about 15 minutes. About halfway through, I do a breathing exercise. Then, I go outside for a quick break and do some flips. When I head back in, I finish up on my lesson games, and it tells me that I'm done for the day. I like to do a little celebration dance when I'm finished. Then I practice cheer, do some homework while I eat my dinner. When it's finally about time, I get ready for bed, do my skincare, put on my cap, and head to bed for a good night rest. Hopefully.
So, a little heartfelt video, lighthearted. But we talk about the reason I show that is two things, right? We talk about dyslexia oftentimes as this challenge that needs to be overcome, and as you just saw, and I think even in your own life as well, you can see this is a normal teen, preteen. This is life. Like they're just living their life,
Hmm.
and they're just living life, right? And so I just want to get your thoughts on that. I mean, the thing that stood out to me the most, and I don't know if they caught your eye either, the breathing exercises, the you know that if you could talk about that for just briefly, like how important are things like that when it comes to not just dyslexia but neurodivergent
And
students?
neurodivergent. So I took yoga. I got certified in yoga last year, you know. And one of the things it does is it calms the nervous system. And it is important that we all breathe. We all do box breathing or some deep belly breathing. And it's important that we understand the importance of it because we could be overstimulated. I know I can. I get overstimulated and I just don't like what's going on around me and I just want to shut down. And the deep belly breathing and the breathing that she did definitely helps her focus going forward.
I like it. Okay. Yeah, let me go ahead and start the second one here. Give me 1 second. All right. Give me a second. I can- All right, you can hear me, right?
Hmm.
Question. Did you hear the I'm gonna just cut this part out. Did you hear the microwave in the background?
No,
You didn't?
nope.
Fantastic. Babe, you're fine. I'm sorry. I was trying to make sure we had it right. Sorry about that. Okay. Let me zoom in on this one really fast. I think this one is also a minute, so it shouldn't be any longer than that. And you can see my screen. Okay, cool.
Mhm.
Here we go. Oops, sorry.
Oh God, I was such a bad student. I'm going to say things that
Really?
embarrassed me forever.
Yeah.
I was a terrible student.
We have this in common.
I didn't want to be in.
You're dyslexic, right?
Yes.
Me too. And I
Frustrating.
thought I was fucking like the dumbest person alive.
If only someone thought to take this young kid who struggles to take him to get tested.
Yeah.
They didn't know it. They didn't have it then, I don't think.
What I immediately thought when I learned you were dyslexic is you don't have the same chip on your shoulder I do. I've observed you don't have the same chip on your shoulder.
What does it look like?
My chip is like, I'm a know-it-all. Everyone thinks I'm dumb. I got to prove I'm smart all the time. And it's exhausting. You don't have that at all. Yeah. Yes. I think that's interesting.
I kind of just know what I know and I know what I don't know. And there was a period, though, where I was mortified to walk into a room or be at a party I would just think, I don't know how to carry on a conversation.
Yeah.
And the truth is the best thing to do is just ask questions.
Yes.
Yeah,
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Right.
Explain that to me.
Knowing what you don't know is the smartest person in the room. The person who knows what they don't know.
Yeah.
And it's also like, there's a lot. Listen, textbook smart, street smart. I could say I'm expert street smart,
Yeah.
and my EQ versus my IQ.
Exactly.
It's just like, so, we're doing pretty good.
But when they would start writing on the chalkboard, and you knew there would be questions that would follow that. If it wasn't auditory, if they weren't telling me something, they were just writing on that chalkboard, I was like, oh man, I hope to God.
Oh God, I was such a bad student.
All right. So, continuing with our theme, and conversations, right? Two questions and points on that. One, that was Jennifer Aniston, for those who may not know, in the Star on Friends. Go look it up. But clearly a successful woman in the sense of she's accomplished much that most people would not accomplish, right? Famous actress, multiple movies, multiple stars. But she talked about being street smart as opposed to being academically smart. What are your thoughts on those? Is there a difference between those two when it comes to being neurodivergent and having dyslexia?
Yeah, so street smart can mean not so much that you've lived in a slum, but it's just the fact that you've persevered through a lot of things and you kind of have built up grit to push forward. And so those are the things that is what she's talking about. Like, she's like, I may not have understood all the stuff in the book. However, I can tell you this. And I know that for sure.
Is that a part of that gifting that you mentioned earlier where, again, even if a person is dyslexia?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's a part of the gifting that you gather because you've seen this experiment run and you already know what the control is in it. But you're also willing to go see what the experiment side is. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Those are the things that I enjoy, and work environments that allow me to get to the solution without a whole lot of what are these multiple steps. I don't know, but I understand what I know now, and I know what needs to be done now, and I can get you to this point. And it will all be resolved. And then I not only do that solution, but I can see down the road as to what you want. I have worked in work environments, say like being honest, like right now, where my forward thinking is not welcomed. And when you're in a work environment where your forward thinking is not welcomed or ostracized, it takes you back to being that child that makes you feel stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And it causes you to say, you know what, I'm not going to share anymore. Yep. And you look for an exit because you're like, you know what, because at that point, you know, you're gifted enough, you know what you're doing, but you also see, well, this environment is not going to challenge me enough on what I don't know, but appreciate what I do know. And that comes with saying, you know what? I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop trying to convince you that I'm intelligent.
Yep. And she talked about that briefly. It's just there are some who may have a chip on their shoulder, like the gentleman in the video, and others like Jennifer Aniston says, I don't need to really prove anything. I just don't I don't know what I don't know, and I don't need to know. I don't need to know the, geography of or geology of a certain topic or whatever. I just need to know what I know. Um, the second thing was more so both of their experiences when it came to the classroom.
Mhm.
And I want to talk about training a little bit. We've seen this. I've seen it, especially in my schools. It's even heightened at it's I would say it's more heightened at college level, collegiate level than in elementary or high school or middle school. Um, but how would you briefly? How would you touch on training a teacher to go from that the writing portion of it to explaining things auditorially? Because the reality is different teachers have different strengths as well. For that teacher
Mhm.
growing up, and I can relate to this, I actually prefer to see the words written on the board. I prefer to see the equations. I prefer to see whatever we're talking about written down because I can comprehend that a little bit better versus auditory. For me, it's the opposite. Auditory, what did we say? I don't even know. So how would you train a teacher to reframe again their thinking and train themselves to help the students with verbalizing and being clear? Because part of the reason they're probably not verbalizing as teachers because they don't even know how to articulate themselves. And the only way to know how to articulate themselves is with this magic pen here.
So what I typically do with my professors is I open it up and I say, "Hey, I'm dyslexic. I learned like this." I go right at it, and I'll say,
You
"I
just tell
learned
them.
like this." I tell them, and I tell them in the beginning, I may need extra time on my assignments. I may need this right here. I may need you to frame this in a different way so I can get it. I'm willing to do the work. I'm willing to put in the time, the effort to meet with you, to do extra. And I'll often ask, what should I be reading to help me get this better? What should I be doing? What skills should I be learning? I want to learn this. So it also starts with what is your desired goal? Because you want the teacher to adjust, but you also have to meet that teacher and professor somewhere halfway to say, let's work this through. You know what I mean? Let's start early.
Yeah.
What am I going to need? What project or paper am I going to need to know or be due so I can start incrementally, one after another quickly, not quickly, but progressively. So I know how I work best.
Hmm.
And I know when my mind absorbs information. I know how my mind absorbs information.
So when
And
you talk about, I'm sorry, go ahead.
so
Continue. I'm sorry.
it's helping people out with you. It's helping them help you. And you have to understand it's a team effort. You have a part and they have a part.
Hmm. And so with that, would you say that is that what you were talking about earlier in terms of that the biggest thing that parents would take away or that the student would take away from working with you, it's that right there, like that ability to just know that they can figure it out?
Yeah. It's like I know what I don't know, but I know what I do know. This is what I understand. Is this in fact check? Okay, this is what I understand. Let's just be clear. This is what you're asking. This is what I understand, but this is what I don't understand.
And having the confidence to
Mm-hmm.
to be okay with that and asking that. It's good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we are almost done. One last video to show you. This one, I'm gonna try to keep us at 9 to 10 minutes. I don't think it'll be too bad.
Okay.
I'm
No
not
worries.
bad. I want to keep this on time as well. And
Okay.
so let me blow this up. And I think this will be a good one. So
Mm-hmm.
That. So I'm dyslexic. And
You did what?
you just what? This is not a safe place.
Oh
If
my
you go to one,
God.
this is not a safe place.
It's what, y'all?
Wait,
This too?
say it one more
Who'd you
time.
diss, man?
Dyslexic. Dyslexic.
It's like, dang, so you.
Why'd
okay.
you diss him?
Okay.
No,
What they
I'm
do to
saying
you?
you know where I'm going, right?
Yes.
Oh my
yes.
God.
You struggle with dyslexia.
I know you really care. I can look at y'all too,
Yes.
right?
I just want to know why you dissed
Y'all not here. It's
Why'd
like
you-
a distraction right here.
Okay. it's
Okay.
So
All right.
you struggle with
Yeah, like
dyslexia.
reading. I'm getting it.
Okay.
Give him time. He just told you he.
That doesn't mean he's slow.
Got an
He just-
ailment.
he just-
What?
Never mind. Go ahead. Yeah, so struggling with reading and spelling. So going through school with that, you just have to accept who you are, and you're gonna get picked on, but find the funny in that.
That's
So
right.
That's where I feel like it opened up.
Yeah.
And it was hard for me because I'm like, I don't know how to spell, read, or write. And I know you got to do that. So I just wanted to go in and do something.
No, it was
was the
Okay, I
breath. It
thought
was
you.
the breath
But why
you
you
took after. I
laughing?
swear I tried to hold it in. You took the breath
Promise you.
after. And it,
No, man, that ain't got nothing to do with time.
damn.
So you can't spell nothing like
Words.
even right now at your age. I mean, because I know you've been dealing with this all your
I
life.
know 3-letter words.
Oh my God.
I'm not really good at spelling. I'm not the only one. It's a community of us out there.
No, for sure. I know it is community, and that's why I'm not.
And that's why you gotta
I promise
watch
I
out.
wasn't laughing at you being.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a community out there. You got to be careful.
So you've never tried.
It's just hard.
So, but when you do your interviews on Open Thoughts, you know you have cue cards. Like,
don't nothing be on it.
Oh, yeah.
Man, you are crazy, man. You a crazy guy, Marco, man.
Okay.
So what happened with you? And struggled in school, so it started with that. So I'm dyslexic.
So that was the big.
I'm not even gonna lie to you. I did not like their reaction, and I'm gonna tell you, I saw in his face he was so frustrated. Shout out to Funny Marco for even talking about it, but I have faced that myself in some ways, and people saying, "Well, how are you so brilliant?" But that, by the grace of God, I, pushed through and read, and I just was like, I'm going to do this. But there's so many things. It hit my soul when they said it. I mean, when their reaction was, and he knew who truly was there with him, and he was just looking like, you all are jerks. Like, how are you laughing, and how are you telling people you're upstanding? He may not ever deal with them ever, and I honestly don't blame him. That was so hurtful, because he's trying to, as a Black man, talk about his struggle. He's trying to be open about that. Who wanted to be open about that? And for them to just keep laughing like it was a joke. He wasn't telling a joke. And he told him, you need to be careful. He said that for a reason. He said that for a specific reason. I would not mind reaching out to him and talking to him.
Yeah.
Honestly, there were so many emotions that went through me when they did that.
Tell me about it. What rage obviously is probably for me personally. I think it was I guess we can probably do a shout out even though she doesn't need it. Jess Hilarious was the one that was the co-host, the woman in the video helping with at least making a clear visible attempt to I get you, I'm not laughing, like just tell me about your experiences. But what else? Because rage was probably the biggest
It was rage, it was frustration, it was sadness, it was confusion. Rage was, how dare you laugh at this? This is a struggle. Sadness is because of the fact that how many battles has he fought and been called stupid? And he's gotten to this point. And you get to this point, and you're sitting on a Breakfast Club and you're thinking these are intelligent, at least, Charlemagne the God is supposed to be this civic, social justice person, to sit and laugh at that right there. And they keep laughing. It wasn't you laughed once because you didn't understand the word. You just kept laughing. That was and it's just, the confusion is, what is your problem? Why do you think that this is a joke?
Yeah.
There are millions of Black men who are dyslexic that are in the judicial system because nobody took the time. And I find that very, very sad. And it was disrespectful. He is talking on a platform that he could be inspiring somebody. And what would another young person like him see? Being picked on. So that tells you that people don't really grow up. And that is worldly as people perceive themselves as. They are still juvenile. And it was just so... A shout out to the women on the show that were really trying to get, and they couldn't even get through the questions because they were laughing.
Right.
It was just like, they are trying to figure this out and you all are being jerks.
Do you see this as this may be controversial, so for those who are tuning in, this may be your time to change. Do you see this as a community, as an issue within the African American community specifically, or is this not limited to just African Americans, but
It's
overall in the
not
world?
limited to just African Americans. It's people who see us as less than. It's people who see us as not worthy. It's people who decide to see what we can't do very well versus saying, hold up, you do this pretty well. Or well, how do you understand this? It's that whole thing right there is the reason I built Matthew Sutherland. Because when someone dyslexic faces that, they confident enough in themselves that they don't have to worry about taking on that ignorance of who they aren't and embrace the gift that they are and walk away from tables that refuse to see their brilliance and not to waste time trying to show them. That you walk in a manner that says, I'm going to hold my head up and I'm not going to convince you because no matter how I explain, you are convinced at all costs to misunderstand me and my situation. So why would I sit, as they say in the Bible, throw my pearls to swine?
Yeah.
And you will sit at tables and you will know. Because even on the higher end, and it was talking about the Rupert Murdoch files, how his brother was teased. This man makes over $1 million a year or more. And he's still getting teased about his dyslexia in a boardroom that his father owns.
Right.
It has nothing to do with socioeconomics. It's all to do about ignorance and the ability to learn and be open. And I like how he said that, be careful. Because he's basically saying there are people who you are trying to open up doors to, and they are dyslexic and they will see this reaction. He's telling them, you don't know who you're sitting next to or who you have to meet to get permission from.
Perfect. I think that was gonna be the next question I asked. You beat me to it. My question was, who is he talking about when he said we have a community full of these people? And the
We are
answer
a
to that,
community. We are hidden. We are here. We are making decisions. You don't know who these people are. I wear this shirt, Celebrate Dyslexia. They can see it. And I wear it, and you would be amazed at the people who smile and say, oh my gosh, what is this? Or, oh my goodness, I need that. Because you don't know who we are and you don't know what CEO, what billionaire may have struggled or is struggling with dyslexia or has a child or a relative or friend that is struggling with dyslexia. And they're like, we need hope. That is where the mental health part of being dyslexic comes in, that when you have situations like that, where you can't openly say, this is what I am. You can't come to a place and show up and bring your whole self because you're hiding pieces that show imperfection. Those are the things that I want to help students and parents walk into this world that is cold and unhinged at times. To say, I got a toolbox. And the first thing I understand is I am enough. That's the first tool in that box. I am enough. And I may not understand the way you do, but there's never going to be me sitting and sulking and comparing my brain to yours because I'm already different. I'm built different. And the fact that I've pushed through and got to this point is a tool in my box that you would never have because you've never pushed through adversity. And pushing through that level of adversity will always be my strength. And because you've had it easy all your time, you will never know what to do with adversity on any level. And so that is what I want people to know about Matthew Sutherland, that we're going to tap into places and turn lights on inside your head that you never knew. So when you face certain things, you'll say, you know what, I don't understand this. Let me research the part I don't know. And let me tell the instructor that I learned like this. What do I need to do and start getting a jump start, maybe on your assignments. So that's how I see it.
I like it. I like it a lot. That'll be it for today. I've held you long enough. It's been an hour. So to all of that tuned in to this interview, we really thank you and appreciate you. Follow us on our social media platforms. Link will be in the description. Please continue to follow us. It really helps us out. And continue to follow our journey as we try to go and make the world a better place by empowering students, teachers, and parents with the tools that they need to overcome dyslexia. For now, that's all we have. Bye-bye for now.